Broadcasting live on tape digitally in ones and zeros from just above the legendary Capitol Records building. It's The Long Shot, come hell or high water. Tonight's episode, James Marsden is a dreamboat and a baby boss. Please welcome Sean Conroy and Amber Kenny.
Come on in, guys.
I'm in, and I'm a guy, so I'm here. Hey, it's Sean. This is The Long Shot. It's a podcast.
Hey, Sean. I'm Amber.
And we do a podcast together called The Long Shot. It is a podcast, and we are podcasting. Glad you folks, people, everyone, individuals, humans, fellow beings are here.
Folks, people.
We have a lot to talk about today because we had, for once, we kind of picked a topic to discuss the following week, and I think we're going to get into that in just a moment. But we always like to sort of dilly-dally around before we get into that and chit-chat about nonsense. So I'll talk about a little bit of what I did this week, which is I had an exciting week because I got to do several things.
Cool. So what I did, what if I thought that was your checking in? I did several things.
I don't understand this podcast. They're so unspecific. They say I did some things, and the other one goes, "Great, I did too," and then it was over.
I'll see you next week.
Yeah. No, my brother was in town with his husband and my nephew, Malcolm. So that was exciting.
Did they stay with you?
No, nor would I wish that on anyone. No, it wouldn't be so.
Except that, like, Ecuadorian model. What was their situation?
My Brazilian supermodel roommate.
Yes.
Yeah, that was different. No. They came really to visit his mother, who lives in South Korea, but was out here staying with friends when she's an actress. You may remember that she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress last year. Yeah. So, which is kind of funny because you feel like when somebody wins the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, they're like top of the list of everything in Hollywood. And I guess she just so doesn't give a fuck that she's like, who cares? You know, like she's already had such a career in South Korea that she doesn't care about Hollywood. And
I feel like that means she'll be successful. It's always the people who are like, they have an attitude like, I don't need it, that it comes to them.
Right. And there's also something gratifying for me as someone who does need it to see somebody being like, I have no interest in this stuff, you know? It's like a nice perspective. But anyway, so they were staying with her down in Orange County. And the last time they were here, I drove down and met them way down there somewhere. I don't remember exactly where we met for brunch. So this time I was talking to my brother and he was like, well, why don't we come closer up to where you are?
Meet halfway.
And you don't have to drive so far. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm fine with, driving, whatever. Who cares?
And you're a local. You get it. You understand how it is.
Right. But he was kind of, so he said, find a place, pick a place, find a place, pick a place.
Throw a rock.
And we'll go to where you want to go. So I was like, okay. So I start looking, there's a thing you can go on the internet and you just like Google around, like what's a good brunch place? What's a this? What's a that? Yeah, you can just find them. And so then I'm like doing all this math of like, how far down are they and how far up would they have to come and how far down would I have to go and whatever.
Parking, you have to account for parking.
Parking. But the thing that occurred to me was I really don't know any of these places that we could go.
Well, yeah, and where would you go? Like City of Industry? Like what are we talking
That's
about?
one of the problems is there is not a lot of hot tourist attraction stuff in between, Villa Park and Los Angeles. It's like, yeah, Commerce, City of Industry. We could go to
It's in the name. Like it's just like hard work, sweaty brow.
Anvilville.
The economy.
Blue collar town. No, I mean, did you watch what was the name of that show on True Detective? The second season of True Detective was in like a weird incorporated area that's like within Los Angeles, but sort of south around City of Industry. It's not a place that you're like, they have great brunch at this place and they have bottomless mimosas.
Right. You might get a chain restaurant if you're lucky.
So I started looking at places on the shore. I was like, we could go sit out over the ocean. But to do that, both of us would have to drive farther than either of us is away, Yeah, like Newport Beach or Redondo Beach or someplace like that. But it was just too far from both places for it to make any sense. On top of which, all those places are like, yeah, we don't take reservations. You just have to show up, put your name on the list. So it's usually a 45 minutes to an hour wait. And I was like, I don't want to deal with that. So ultimately, and honestly, the biggest thing to me was like, I just have no idea. If I pick a place, I have no idea what that place is going to be like. And what if it's not good? And what if I picked a place that's not good and I don't want that responsibility? So I did what you're supposed to do in that situation. I was a man about it. I put it right back on his shoulders. And I said, you know what? You pick a place. You find a place. You do this. And so he was like, what about this place? And I don't know how he found it. I bet he probably used
Googled it.
The internet. Yeah. And
it'd be insane if he found it without the internet. I would be impressed.
Right. How did people do things before though?
Like, I don't know how did you drive anywhere?
Right. Like people did.
It's crazy.
But now, it's like we all rely on that so much.
Like half of our brain is external.
Gone. Right. Anyway, we get to this place and I couldn't even tell you what town it was in, but let's just say it was not a great town. It was just like churches and pawn shops.
Oh, I have a couple guesses.
It was, name a way that a restaurant could be terrible, and it was terrible in every way. It was, the food was not good. The service was not good. The ambiance was not good. It was too loud. It was just everything. It wasn't expensive. Well, I don't know. I didn't pay. He paid. So I have no idea, really. I don't think it was expensive, though. But it was one of those places, and I think we've talked about this before, that this is a very California thing. And I think it still is, because I don't think it's made its way to New York, but where you order at the counter and then you get your number and then you go sit down and they bring you your thing. So there's four of us. There's me, my brother, his husband, and their son. And we each ordered like our breakfast and coffee or juice or coffee and juice, a side, whatever. But I say that because you figure there's 4 or 5 items for each of us, which means somewhere between 16 and 20 things. Each of them was brought out separately from each other item.
God.
Like each thing, like somebody would come out and go, here's a thing. Yeah, here's your fruit cup. Yeah, here's your pancakes. Here's your coffee. And it wasn't the same waiter or waitress every time. It was a different person every time. And they just so you didn't get to eat, like if you wanted to eat your bacon and your eggs at the same time, one of them was going to be cold by the time the other one came. So it was just terrible. And my brother's husband is the sweetest guy in the world, but he's just a little bit soft-spoken. And it was so loud that I was having trouble hearing him the whole time. And we had masks on while we were waiting for our food to come out. But my point is, none of that bothered me in the slightest. I was like, I don't care. I'm seeing these guys.
Your relationship with your
I was like, I'm seeing these guys. That's the reason I'm here. And I'm so happy to see them. I'm happy to talk to them. I'm happy to find out what's going on. They're coming all the way from Brooklyn, so I don't get to see them on a regular basis. I get to see them.
And there's the pandemic, which is probably making things that
absolutely. But had I chosen the place,
you would have been beside yourself.
I would have been crushed by guilt the entire time. Mm-hmm. So I was so glad that I put the responsibility on him, because it didn't mean anything to me anymore. I was fine with the food. I was fine with a little hard to hear sometimes, but other than that, everything, I was like, this is perfect. What a great day. I'm so happy right now to be here with these guys. Whereas I would have been distraught if I had picked the place. I would have been like, oh, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm so sorry. This is, oh God, excuse me. Can we just get a little better service? And can you tell everybody to keep their conversations down and stop jangling their silverware so loudly? And
you wouldn't be able to be present at all.
No, I would have been in my head the entire time. Like, I'm a fuck up. I'm a huge fuck up. And none of that happened. So it was a great day. It was just really nice to see them. Mm-hmm. And I felt, even though I feel like that's not taking responsibility by making the decision myself, I was so glad I did that. And I don't know this for sure. I think my brother listens to this show sometimes, so he may hear me say this. I think that he is the type of personality who is like,
it wouldn't,
whatever, who cares?
Wouldn't take it personal.
No, so it wouldn't bother him. I don't know that for a fact. And if he does listen to this, let's talk about it. Let's figure out if I'm right or not. But I feel like he's like, it's not my fault. Like, I did this in good faith, and these people are just not good at their jobs.
Right.
So anyway, it was a nice day. And then the other thing I got to do this week was, and it's not that I got to do it, but I went and I got my hair cut, and that was very exciting. I have somebody that I go to who cuts my hair, who I met when I was surfing in Costa Rica about 12 years ago. And I have not.
Which, jealous. I want to be surfing in Costa Rica.
Well, she was like, should we go back? Should we just go back? And I was like, I would like to. I don't know if I want to go back to the same place, but we kind of decided, and I don't know if this will be possible, but we kind of decided that one way or another, we're going to do it. We're going to do some surfing next summer. Fun. Even here. Like, she's like, I know people who go down to, I forget where, Huntington Beach or someplace like that, and we can just go with them and figure it out. Now that means certain things need to happen between now and then. Like, I need to, which I'm doing, I need to work on getting in better shape and, all those things. But I do hope to get to that point. It would be fun.
That'd be really fun.
I loved it. I did it for 5 minutes and I loved it. And I was like, this is great. I'm going to do it. Yeah. And then, practical reality intrudes. It's like, do I really want to drive 4 hours every day to get to the beach? And
at like the crack of dawn.
Right. So that was my excitement for the week.
That's great. I love it.
How about you?
It was a very busy week at work. That was hard to even say. Like, I had a couple days where Jeff had to be like, hey, like, have you gone outside today? Like, have you moved your body? And
you were like, no, we're playing Statue of Liberty as a bonding exercise.
Oh, well, that's the other thing. That was like the great foil is Jeff took this week off work. It just worked out that he has been crazy busy with work. And this week, landed nicely between big projects, so it was an easy week for him to take off. I attempted to also take it off, and it was like, no, absolutely not. So he's been like lounging around the house. I keep describing it as he's drinking pina coladas. I've never seen him drink a pina colada in his life, but like that energy,
Right.
and I'm like
drinking pina coladas. He's getting caught in the rain.
Right.
He's making love at midnight.
So it's been a hilarious contrast of and he's having a great time. He's like waking up and going and having breakfast at the farmer's market and reading his book and then coming home and taking Smudgy for a hike. And like, I'm like, that looks nice.
I just pictured Jeff walking into the farmer's market and he's just like, farmers. And all the farmers are like, Jeff. They all lift their straw hats.
The fact that I'm busy isn't like a super interesting story, but it is a big thing that happened this week. I wanted to give a Smudgy update because I had a couple of friends from my sketch team, The Truce, come over on Sunday for a movie night.
And the Truce is the arch enemies of Squeesh. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. Till death. And that was really fun. Oh, did you hear that?
No.
Oh, there was it was like my stomach was rumbling, but it was like in my chest. I have no idea.
Get your stomach out of your chest, first of all. That's not where it belongs.
But yeah, it was really fun, but I don't know about you. I feel like this is a little bit my mom's influence. I'm turning into my mother, and also just I'm not used to socializing still. So I spent like the entire day cleaning the house and getting snacks and I made Rice Krispie treats and all that stuff. And it was way too much. There was 2 people who came over, right. But it was fun. What I mean is I don't regret it though, because like the getting ready for the event was kind of just as fun as the event for me on some level. Like
and it keeps your place clean.
Totally.
And you got Rice Krispie treats. Mm-hmm. I've had people over on a regular basis lately.
No Rice Krispie treats?
Well, that's absolutely no Rice Krispie treats. But also, like, honestly, this place is a fucking mess. Like the kitchen is, destroyed. It's. I used to have a whole thing with my.
I'm picturing just like.
Like somebody ransacked the apartment,
and it's like on the ceiling. There's
no food waste anywhere.
Oh,
like
good.
It's not like dirty dishes piled in the sink or anything like that. But like, I have a coffee grinder, and when you grind coffee, it tends to sort of get around, And so that was speaking of I don't remember if we were saying this on the show or off the show, but speaking of my Brazilian supermodel roommate, she was always obsessively cleaning the tiniest little coffee grounds off of that. Like she just did not care for. So like, there's even like a tray underneath the coffee grinder now, because that way it doesn't, but I've been here by myself, and it's
like a
just
sandbox
fucking everywhere. Yeah. It's like a Zen. Like if I took a rake, I could make like those Zen lines with it. And people come over, and I'm just like, "Hey, sorry for the mess." Like there's nothing I could do.
There's literally nothing I could do.
But
there's no way to fix it.
But you're absolutely right. My mother, if she saw this, she would be furious at me. She would be like, "How can you let people into your house when it looks like this?" I probably have told this story before, but my parents came to visit out here. They've been out a couple of times, but one time they came and they stayed with me. And so before they came, I cleaned the whole apartment top to bottom, and then I had professionals come in and clean the apartment top to bottom.
And then you cleaned it again.
It was spotless.
And they probably still were like, "What's this?"
Well, they're here for the day. I go pick them up at the airport. We do whatever we do, whatever. I show them like, this is where you guys are sleeping. It's nighttime. The TV is on. I'm
Do
like,
you typically have to tell them what time of day it is?
maybe I didn't mention that in the conversation. Yeah.
It is nighttime.
Guys, you might notice it's dark outside. That is because here in California, we have a thing called nighttime, and it is now.
Not the time, just the like general.
Yeah. But anyway, my dad is on the couch. The TV is on. I start to sit. I'm like, oh, okay, we can just sort of, and I just hear like, and I'm like, oh my God, what is, and I go around the corner and my mother is in the hallway where my washer and dryer are. And she has taken the lint screen out of the dryer and stuck a fork down into where the lint screen is and is pulling out the little bit of lint that has been.
Why would she even check in there?
She had to find something. She had to find something. And I was like, holy shit. Like, so anyway, she would be furious if she saw how much coffee grounds are on my counter right now. But anyway, so you had your friends over.
So we had a fun movie night. It was really great. And
do you plan the movie ahead of time or do you pick the movie there?
Well, I tried. It didn't work out because we always try to watch a bad movie that we could make fun of together as a group. But like the rules are no one could have seen it first because it's not fun to be like, oh, you had that joke locked and loaded. Like,
right. You're doing your Gone with the Wind chunk, please. Yeah.
Oh, really? Is that wind?
You're right. It does sound like a fart. Yeah.
So we didn't settle on anything. And then we were just catching up, honestly, for a while. And somehow it came up. We watched the first 2 episodes of La Brea. And it was so fun and so perfect. It broke the rules because Karen had seen it. And she was saying, she mentioned that. I
know Karen.
I know. She mentioned that because she was like, I was doing writer's notes and Sean said, she said that you said the acting was good. And we all laughed really hard.
I don't think that, first of all, I don't think that's true.
I think she said that you said, yeah, the writing's bad, but the acting's pretty good. And she's like, hard disagree. Anyway.
Can we take a break? I need to call Karen.
But we can't.
Okay.
So, but the way she phrased it, it made it sound like she was like, I'm doing writer's notes and Sean said this about La Brea. And so I was like, whoa. Are you writing notes on La Brea for Sean? Like, what is going on? And she's like, no. But I was like, what is he tricking you into doing?
Yeah,
What's going on?
Yeah, you know how it is. I like to take notes on anything I watch. So.
But I don't want to watch it, so I make other people take notes.
Right. Give me a summary of La Brea.
Notes.
Yeah.
But it was really fun, and now we want to kind of keep getting together every 2 weeks to watch the next 2 episodes.
Great.
That's how they get you, I guess. But that was a fun make fun of watch. Just because
we talked about La Brea last week, right?
I don't know.
I think we talked about it on this episode last week.
Oh, I said that seeing the trailer. I had seen the trailer.
Yeah,
I hadn't watched the show yet.
So what are your favorite things? Like I want to know what your favorite things are about the show. Aside from the good acting, which I think is so indisputable.
Good. You're like, they're the best actors I've ever seen. They're not good actors.
Hello.
That is funny.
Emmy, I think you've got an award to give out.
I just love that there should be like tens of thousands of people in this prehistoric time that fell in. If it's that big of an area of La Brea, and there's like 7 people total, there should be like dead bodies everywhere or like injuries, and they're all just like perfectly clean and fine. I love the dad who's like, he saw a picture of a rock and he's like, I know where they are in prehistoric times. Like, what? Like, it looks just like a normal rock. There was nothing discernible about it. Right. I love a lot of things. Sorry for spoilers, P.S. for people.
Yeah. I want them to start saying, like, holy shit, there's a cartoon wolf. Because the special effects are so, I'm sure they're spending so much money on them, but they're also so low grade at the same time compared to what we're used to with like Jurassic Park in 1993 at this point. It's like so below that, and they look hilarious. Like, holy shit, another cartoon but this time it's a saber-toothed tiger. Like, totally. and then I think this was episode 2, so we didn't talk about it last week. But did we talk about the camels at all? That there were camels? Like, that really made me laugh because... Well, and
that was another moment where the guy's like, I know where we are because there's 7 camels. Like, what?
But what's interesting about that is, in my head, so they have these SFX, special effects. SFX is short for special effects, or VFX, maybe, visual effects. And they have these VFX dinosaurs, basically, or like prehistoric creatures, like gigantic wolves and saber-toothed tigers. But then at another point,
just real camels.
Real camels. The guy's like, no. He's an Australian guy. So he's like, no, don't run in there. That's a tar pit. You don't want to be in there, you camels. And so he keeps these camels from running into tar pit. So in my head, I was like, are they mixing real animals with dinosaurs so that we don't notice how bad the special effects are? And do they think that we won't notice that those two things probably didn't exist at the same time? So, of course, you can find all that stuff out if you look on this thing called the internet. And so I started, and he actually says on the show, he goes, I'm getting my master's degree at the La Brea Tar Pits, and we just dug up a bunch of skeletons of camels last year. So those are the camels that are saved from the tar pits.
Does that mean if you go back to the present, those skeletons don't exist anymore? Because
they didn't go in. Yeah.
Wow.
So so what's going to happen is when he gets back to the present, Michael J. Fox is going to be disappearing because those camels don't exist anymore. But I looked up camels and I looked up saber-toothed tigers, and saber-toothed tigers went extinct 10,000 years ago, which is exactly when this show is supposed to be taking place and when these camels supposedly that he saved, these camels that they found in the La Brea tar pits, they've picked a very specific moment where saber-toothed tigers overlap with camels.
Somebody was Googling and they're like, we could do it. It's a go.
It's amazing.
But everything, like, I'm no scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but like the fact that the mountain ranges in that amount of time, like no change.
Yeah.
No, nothing.
We did talk about this because she looks at the silhouette of the Hollywood,
which isn't
fire
a thing.
company. Yeah.
And then it's like it's identical. Like there was
nothing.
Where
we are. Yeah.
There was no. The rain didn't make it go down lower or anything.
The Grand Canyon has been exactly the same for 10 million years.
Also, one of the characters' names is Dr. Nathan, and for some reason that is so funny to me.
Which one is?
I think it might be like in present day, the like in charge of FEMA, but they're always like Dr. Nathan, and I'm like, did you guys just throw a name at a dartboard? I think it's a woman. It's like it's her last name, but it just doesn't sound real.
But what's fucked up is her first name is actually Nathan. So it's Nathan. But no, so this was the episode where John, what's his name? The guy. There's so many things about it, but like in the first episode, the daughter goes, "Oh, that's my father, a Navy SEAL and a doctor. He can do anything." Like, so,
well,
so expositional.
They're all like, it's so heavy-handed, everything that's being said above. Like, I can't see and I can't hear and I can't run. It's like, oh, I wonder if you're going to come together and overcome those obstacles.
Anyway, I do have my season pass set for folks. Get used to hearing get used to hearing about La Brea, because we're going to be talking about this more as the weeks go on.
It's a La Brea. But anyway, that wasn't even the story I was telling. We had a great time, but Karen listens to the podcast. So sorry, Karen, you just had to relive your own life.
I didn't say the acting was good. Why are you lying about me?
I'm starting shit. But she was like, she came into the house like tell me when I'm allowed to come in. Like, I want to make sure Smudgy's okay. And then he ran out, like, not on a leash, like totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of, he wasn't totally fine the whole time, but she was like, "Oh, how is he doing?" I was like, "Oh, he's great. We went for a hike today." And she's like, "Oh, like last time you talked about on the podcast, it felt dire." And I realized I stopped talking about him. One, because I felt repetitive and boring, and I didn't want it to be just like a journal of exactly what my dog does every day. And two, like it has felt lighter, so it's less oppressively ruling my life. So I do have some good news. So I do want to do a Smudgy update. I realize some people, as much as I might be self-conscious about it being boring, I think some people are invested in the Smudgy journey. So I want to take.
Also, once you start thinking about which person likes what, that's the death of art, and we're artists. So
I don't know if I'm an artist. I don't know if I've done an artistic.
We're gonna do our art no matter what.
Long time, but yeah, I want to say like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I just got it in my head because we would practice taking on and off a second leash. He had his one leash on permanently when he came home from school, and he was killing it. He was doing it so well, and he loves chasing toys. And there was a couple times where he would go chase a toy and his leash would get caught on like the corner of the kitchen counter, and he'd do like a ricochet where he would get pulled back by his neck. And I was like, ooh, don't love that. That feels unsafe. And I also don't want him to start hating the leash. Like, it's defeating the point. And he was doing such a good job with taking on and off that second leash. So one day, and maybe I should have made it more of a family conversation, but it ended up being fine. One morning I was just like, I'm taking your leash off. And so when he's inside, he doesn't wear a leash, and we put it on when he goes out. And that is so normal. But every single time it feels like a miracle, truly, because it was so hard for so long. And
so it wasn't like you were like, this is the big moment. I'm going to take the leash off and we're just going to have one leash that goes on and off. You were just like, I don't want you yanking your neck out of its socket, so I'm just going to take it off for now and we'll see how it goes. And then it worked out.
Totally.
That's great.
And yeah, we go for walks. We go for long walks now, and that's been good, I think, for both of our mental health. He's still kind of reactive when he sees another dog, but he's mostly good with people. Like, he's still smudgy. He's still got emotional problems, but we have them managed. We have skills. We have tools in place. When he gets kind of overwhelmed,
like a hammer,
he goes into his crate and he just goes to sleep now. Like, what I mean is our day-to-day isn't horrific. And it was for kind of a long time. And
That's a lot. That's a big step forward, it seems like.
So yeah, and he's doing good. We like him. We like him a lot. And
he's still making up his mind.
I know. We always joke that like, you know, like all dog owners, you know, you have like a voice, a Smudgy voice. So I'm always like, I love you, Smudgy. And he's like, I want to kill you, mama.
There's a little bit of the psycho lurking in there still.
Yeah. He has an anger in him. He has a temper, that's for sure. And he still is a mother trucking. He has like a brat streak. We'll be walking down the street and suddenly he's like, I don't want to walk anymore. And he'll sit down and he'll put his chin up so he looks really bratty. And I'm like, no. And then we just keep walking like a minute later. But I was like, what even was that? Like, what are you doing? Did I tell you that we know his genealogy now?
No.
So I am.
Is he a descendant of royalty?
Yes. So I became Instagram. I followed on Instagram the family that adopted his brother from the rescue. same litter, and she did a DNA test on her dog, and she shared the results, and he's miniature pinscher, Chihuahua, and poodle. So yeah, he's crazy.
Miniature pinscher.
Uh-huh.
Oh, like a Doberman pinscher.
Uh-huh.
But miniature.
Yeah.
Got
and
it.
that makes sense. That's what his body looks like.
For some reason, when you said miniature pinscher, I was like, this makes no sense. But in my head, I was like, crab?
But a little one. But yeah, we keep going, oh, there's our min pin. The little min pin.
But that seems like a kind of an aggressive type of dog.
Yeah, yes, but smart, but stubborn. Like everything I've read about miniature pinschers, I was like, yes, that is my dog.
Right. But it's good to know those things.
Mm-hmm.
It helps, I guess.
So that's my Smudgy update.
Great. Well, that sounds like things are looking up, trending.
Yeah. Knock on all the wood. It's been a tough year for a lot of reasons, but the Smudgy stuff certainly was a large portion of it for me.
Right.
Also, this is tipping next week, but whatever, let's tip next week. Jeff and I have not gone away overnight anywhere since my birthday last year, which is, we're almost at a calendar year. And we are going away tomorrow. So very excited about that. What?
Overnight.
Yeah. Friday and Saturday night.
Over 2 nights. 2 overnights.
And Smudgy's going back to his school for those 2 days.
He loves it there.
We'll see. We packed his lunches. It's so cute.
He's like, do I get to go in the amphitheater again? Where everybody's all locked up? I love going to where everybody's all locked up and I get to be in the amphitheater. Are we going to go for a walk in Target?
We keep joking because we're like, yeah, he's pretty good. But that the school people are going to be like, this is not good. Like, we have lower standards.
They're going to start putting more leashes on him again. I just picture when you were talking before about taking off one leash and still having a leash on, it felt a little bit like one of those magic tricks where the magician keeps pulling handkerchiefs out of his jacket, you know, like and it's just like he has another leash on and another leash.
It's funny that you say that because that's how we present it to him. It sounds insane, but we're always like, it's a magic trick. I put on your leash and you get fed. I take off your leash, you get fed. Like it made it happen.
I hope he likes magic. Some people don't, you know. I think it's easy to hate magic, but I'm a fan. Okay, so you're going out of town. Smudgy's doing well. What else? Anything else?
Work is crazy busy. Every time I'm like, I think I figured stuff out. Like an email comes in that's like, everything's on fire. Like you fucked up. And I'm like, oh no. So, but I am taking tomorrow off. So we'll see.
Nice. All right. Well, should we get into what we talked about
the real
about
stuff
for this week?
Well, this has turned into a 27 dresses / La Brea
/ murder podcast.
Yes. And those fit together nicely.
I was on La Brea wearing 27 dresses when I got murdered. Yeah. So I guess we talked last week about watching 27 Dresses, and you said that you watched it.
And I spent the entire week being like, okay, I guess I could get it in on Tuesday. Like I was stressed out about watching.
Like homework assignment.
Yes. I was like, Sean's going to be so mad if I don't watch 27 Dresses.
I would have been furious. But here's a question I have.
But because I was so passionate about watching it, Jeff was like, is this your favorite movie? And I was like, no.
I like the sequel, 28 Dresses. Much better. But here's a question I have. So you had to watch 27 Dresses. You had to watch those 2 episodes of La Brea. I feel like, because I teach classes now where I assign people to watch stuff, and I'm working on other stuff where we always are like,
Karen's writing notes for you, but yeah.
Right. I'm like, Karen, can you watch this show and write notes on it, please? No, but I'm always like, okay, let's watch this thing as a reference or, whatever. I just feel like whenever something is like, here's another example. I'm going to do a podcast next week that is I don't want to give anything away, but it involves pop culture-y stuff. So there's a requirement of like, you have to be familiar with a couple of things. And so now I'm like, okay, I got to familiarize myself with this and with this. And I feel like well, it could be like you have to familiarize yourself with anime and film noir,
I'm joking, but like he's telling us too much information.
Right. But I feel like as soon as it is required that I watch something, I will do anything not to watch that thing.
Yes.
And it reminds me of before Netflix was a streaming service, when it was, what did you do? You picked stuff online and then it sent you the DVDs. And then you had, as long as you wanted, I just wouldn't watch it for like a month and a half. And meanwhile, paying the fees on a regular basis, because as soon as I had the thing in front of me, I was like, this is not what I want to watch. I want to watch something else. I want to see something else.
And you can't get the next one until you've turned in that one.
Right. That was how it was then with the Netflix stuff. But I feel like, I don't know what that is psychologically, but as soon as something is important to watch, it's the last thing in the world I want to watch.
I mean, I think it's the same with school and reading. Like, I'm sure there's some books in high school that if I had just stumbled upon them, I would have like devoured. But as soon as it's assigned, it's like, I don't know.
Right. So maybe there's an English class somewhere where the teacher is like, all right, class, the first thing I would like you to write down is whatever you do, do not read 1984. And then the kids are like, oh, 1984. It's interesting. And it comes after 1983 or whatever, I forget what that book was about, but that was mostly about what it was about, right? Mm-hmm. So 27 Dresses, you watched it. What did you think? What were your thoughts?
So good. No, it was wild because nothing felt grounded in reality. It's exactly what you were mentioning last week, where there wasn't like a moment that I was like, oh, that is identifiable as something that happens in life. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a single moment, but it was like watchable.
Right. It's just interesting to me because, first of all, there is no subtext in romantic comedy. There's just text like, this is who I am. This is what my life is. This is who my boss is. This is what I think about this. This is my problem. This is your problem. If we could solve those two problems, we would both be perfect people. But at least we know specifically what those problems are, mm-hmm. and we know how they could be solved. Even if we can't solve them, we know what they are.
Right. We're not oblivious we are very aware.
I feel like real life people are a mess, but
have no idea.
Right.
And are doing the exact things that they hate in other people, because mm-hmm. that's how psychology works. But, this was the big thing that I wanted to talk about with you. Mm-hmm. James Marsden's entire job.
By the way, hold on. Before we even get into his job, James Marsden, Dreamboat, who I identified as somebody from X-Men. Mm-hmm. He plays the guy, again, I didn't even look it up this week. I should have looked it up, but he's the guy who has the things over. He has like sunglasses on, and then he goes, like he blows people up with his laser eyes. I think that might be his name, is Laser Eyes. But what was funny was when I said last week he's from X-Men, you were like, no, Boss Baby. And I just thought that was so funny because it's like the whole point is that this guy is a dreamboat And you're identifying him from an animated movie. It's like, okay, sure. He's mostly known for playing a baby in Boss Baby or whatever.
He plays the not baby. Alec Baldwin plays the baby.
Okay, well, whatever the case, he doesn't look like himself in that movie. He's a character.
Right.
But anyway, so you're going to say James Marsden's job is...
Yes. It is hysterical because he works for a newspaper and he writes like the write-ups of weddings, which is a real thing. I think there are write-ups of weddings, but how I understand it is they're sort of like submitted by the couple themselves, or like there isn't like a beat reporter like going to every wedding in New York City.
Not only going to every wedding, but like going on tours with the bride.
He has to interview every single person who is in the wedding, who attended the wedding, who catered the wedding.
Right.
For this exhaustive, like investigative thing, just to be like, they got married at a boathouse. And he's like stressed about it. And his editor is like, I need that on my desk by 5 p.m. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
Their whole financial model is based on their wedding announcement pages. Like, this is the New York Journal, the oldest, most prestigious newspaper in New York. And we only make money off the advertisements in the wedding pages.
And even if that was true, it would be like so much more profitable to not do it this way, where somebody investigates every human being who attends a wedding.
And he's
just to write a puff piece. Like, why are you interviewing everyone?
There's such funny exposition just between him and the boss right at the beginning, where he's like, I want harder stories. I want to do a real story. And she's like, oh, like the story you did about how wedding cake makers inflate the price of their, and he's like, flour is 8 cents a pound. Those people are inflating it 800%. Like, it's this incredibly important, like, hard-hitting news story.
Well, that was the other funny thing is, I don't know if it's like, because I think the movie came out in 2008. So I think it might just be like how much the world has changed in that much. But one of the stories, he's like, wedding dress workers are being exploited. And the editor's like, nobody gives a shit. And I was like, that's like, I feel like people give a shit. Like, that actually is a story. Right. But she was like, bleh.
Who cares?
Yeah. I don't know. It made me laugh, but I was like,
blah, 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 blah.
That sounds like a real story.
Yeah. But to that point also, it came out in 2008. Were we all still using filofaxes in 2008? Was that a time when nobody had, like, because the first thing that happens is she leaves her filofax in the cab, and that's how he goes, oh, I got your filofax. I'm going to catch up with you. No, that is a plot point that he's like, you should buy a phone or a computer. Nobody uses these anymore. Like, that was, I also liked how much, and it's just like, this is the plot. Yeah. So this is how we have to act. Even if it makes zero sense and it's not justified at all. But she fucking hated his guts, like wanted him dead. Because he was like, I don't know if I believe in marriage. And she was like, I'm going to throw you off a cliff. I never want to see your face again. I will throw up if I ever see you again. And to your point, like, you're looking at James Marsden, right? Like, there would be some she's
level
completely
of, like,
unaffected by that.
Like,
and he's like following her around.
Yeah,
and she's just like, you are the most disgusting, vile human being.
Yes. And like, yeah.
But that's also, you're exactly right. It's because he doesn't just question the validity of weddings. He's like, as she says, he's very cynical. He's like, who gives a shit? Like, it's just forced conversation, uncomfortable reunions, and getting drunk. That's what a wedding is. And meanwhile, she loves weddings. So they're exact opposites meeting in the back of a cab, talking about the one thing there's no way they'll ever connect on. And that means not only do they hate each other, but they are perfect for each other.
Mm-hmm. That's how love
And that's what I mean. Like, there's no subtlety, no subtext, no, everybody is just the exact thing that they need to be in that particular moment.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it,
It was better than you thought.
No. It might have worked with a subtler, more adept actor. Playing the girl part. What am I doing?
Well, you know what her name is, right?
It is Catherine?
Jane.
No.
That's the character's name.
Right.
And I was like,
but
she's Jane because she's just a plain Jane.
Right.
Like, that's, perfect for her. She's Jane.
But I can see an actor playing it where you can tell the entire time that they're attracted to James Marsden or that there's some sort of spark, but they're fighting it. But she did not do that. She was playing it like, I wish you were dead. And it's so weird.
You vile creature.
And then the Benny and the Jet scene.
Well, that was my big obsession. That was what really got me going on that movie.
Because everyone in the bar loved it. They wouldn't no one was upset that this was happening.
And you saw that one guy that I was talking about, right? The one extra who was like sitting next to them and was like, it's not even like he's sitting next to them going, hey, this looks like it's going well for you. He's, as we say in acting, indicating everything to such a high degree. Yeah. That there's no way you could help but, and I'm sure what happened was they knew what they were building to, and this was the director's way of going, okay, we're going to start with it being one person.
Yeah, some people are into it right away.
It's a subtle thing, like we're starting with this one guy and then we're building it out. Yeah, right. Like it spreads through the rest of the crowd.
Well, and I also liked that her arc at the end, again, sorry for the spoilers, is basically like she had to be cured of weddings and taking care of weddings by finally having her own wedding. Like it was just like
it's the only way.
Okay.
That's her problem though, right? Is that she's just all about taking care of other people. She takes care of her boss, she takes care of her sister, and she doesn't take care of Judy Greer, the other character.
There's so much I can say. The fact that she was in 2 weddings the same night, I would argue
insane.
You're not a good bridesmaid. Like that's not good.
Although my counterpoint to that would be, and I'm not sure that this is what we were witnessing, but I chose to see it this way. So she's in 2 weddings
and
as a bridesmaid.
She changes her clothes and hair every time
back and forth. Yeah, she's same night.
Find an outfit that works for both. What are we doing?
Well, you can. If you're a bridesmaid, you got to wear what the bride wants you to wear.
And like put your hair back up in a bun and then take it out and then put it back up and then take it out.
Right. And so she's at one wedding with her sort of waspy friends. And then the other wedding is her Jewish friend marrying an Indian guy, right? Like it was very New York that there was lots. So like they're playing the same song, which is a Michael Jackson song. And the white people are all dancing like white people. And then we cut to the other wedding and everybody's dancing like a Bollywood musical. Like it was just crazy, but
on the nose.
Yeah, a little on the nose. But so she's going back and forth in the cab. She's paying the driver $300 to take her back and forth to the 2. And she's like, every time you look in the back, I'm deducting money because she's changing her dress. She doesn't want him to see her naked. And I think that was one of the few jokes in the movie that I thought was funny. She's like, 140, you know what you did. But she's ostensibly so close to both of these women that she's in their wedding. and yet neither of them is close enough to the other.
Right. They have no idea that the other
exists, right? But you're saying by going back and forth between those two weddings, she's not a good bridesmaid. However, we did see scenes at both of those weddings where she was.
Yes.
What were you going to say?
They make speeches about her.
Well, no, okay, yes.
That made me die laughing. I was like, never seen this before. All of the brides were like, everybody, like, keep it down. I have someone special to thank. It's
the most important thing we have to talk about today is my third bridesmaid who helped me get the cake. But no, that's not what I was going to say, because that is a good point. But what I was going to say is we see scenes at both of those weddings of her helping the bride take a shit during the wedding.
It's probably peeing. And
that's why I say I chose to see it that way.
Jeff asked me about it, and that is a real thing.
But it just was that she was the one with both of them.
Well, that's why they made the speech about her.
I was like, oh, come on. She's the one who helps them both shit like that? Come on, that's not real. But I guess maybe she was that close to both of them.
Well, I had a hard time. If you have that many close friends that you are in the wedding party, like that's very close.
Mm-hmm.
Like she didn't have a phone conversation with any of those 27 women the entire movie. She didn't go to lunch with them.
Right. They don't exist except on the day of their wedding so that she can have the dress after that. And then they exist at the very end when they all serve as her bridesmaids in their own individual.
Which honestly was the best part of the whole movie.
Just everybody in their different outfits. I mean, that's another weird thing, that whole scene where she has every dress in a closet in her apartment. And you know, we all know how precious real estate space is in New York. We've heard that conversation about Friends a million times by now.
More than 27. Am I crazy?
I don't know, maybe, but
and how he took pictures of them, and then he wrote an article about her, but then he started to like her. This is just me recapping the movie.
Yeah.
But then like the editor's like, this is going to be the front page. I was like, why? Like, what are you
But not only that, the editor tells him it's going to be the front page. And he goes,
like, you better thank me for that.
He goes, just wait, please wait a week. I feel like there's more about her that I want to get into. Like I want to get into more. And so he goes and he fucks her. And the editor says, I'll wait a week. I'll give you a week. And he goes and he has sex with her. And the editor, in the meantime, has changed her mind and publishes it that morning. And so they're at breakfast after their first consummation, and the paper comes out, and they're like, everybody in the diner, because I guess in 2008, people still got the paper every day.
They love the paper, and they love the wedding
section, right? So they're like, oh, that's the girl from the newspaper.
Famous.
Yes. But the whole thing also, just to go back to the thing that I am really obsessed with about the whole thing, is the fact that there's no subtext, and that we know what everybody's problem is, and we know how to solve it. So we know that her problem is, from the time she was very young, she had to take care of her much more beautiful sister. She was the ugly duckling that nobody cared about, and her much more beautiful sister got everything she wanted, and she had to take care of her. So that's her problem. James Marsden, baby boss, boss baby.
Hey, baby boss.
His problem, we learned,
is that his heart was broken. He went too far with that. He had a very fancy wedding all planned out, and his bride ran away with his college roommate. And I don't think I would have noticed this the first time I watched it, but it was really funny to me the second time. That information comes out in a scene where the two of them are going through a store while she is doing the QR coding all the things that the bride is going to want for her wedding. And again, it's that no subtext thing where she's like, I know what your problem is. Your problem is probably this, or it's that, or it's this, or it's that. And then she goes, or did you have a fancy wedding scheduled and the bride ran off with somebody else? And he goes, bingo.
nailed it. And it was my roommate from college. But what's really funny about it is that the way it's shot, she's kind of guessing things, and then she turns away and her back is to the camera, and that's when she says, or did you have a real, and so we're just seeing the back of her head, and she says, or did you have a really fancy wedding planned and the bride took off with somebody else, or whatever the line is, where she nails his heart wound that has made him the cynic that he is. She's not looking at the camera, and the line is clearly ADR. Like, it's clearly something that they put in after they shot the actual footage that it's over, which means that this pivotal moment in the movie didn't even get covered when they were doing coverage of all the shots they were doing in the movie. They got to a point during editing where they were like, holy shit, we don't have a clean shot of her saying the most important line she has in their conversation. We're going to have to ADR it. Let's just show the back of her head and we can have her dub it in later. And I was like, oh my God, how can you have that happen in a movie that has like 5 major emotional moments and you just completely missed one of them?
Totally. And I also want to bring up the fact that the sister, I think the actor's name is
Malin Ackerman.
If you see Malin Ackerman on screen, that is the character you're not supposed to like for some reason. Like, she has been typecast as the like enviable, like sort of competition to the lead. Don't you think? Like, I
don't know. I'm trying to think of what else I've seen her in, and like what I know her from really is Children's Hospital, because that's where I met her when I was doing. I didn't do a lot with them, but like I did a couple things, and I have no idea who her character was on that show because I never watched the show. But she's in Billions. I know she's the wife of the. Oh, I don't.
I know she's in Wanderlust, and she's in like a bunch of comedies where like that is her part. Like, what I mean, like it's like sexuality first, humanity, maybe not even making it to the table. And I like feel bad for her because I feel like we were supposed to hate her guts, and it's like,
right?
But why?
Well, yes, but there was no subtlety in that either.
No,
it was like she was lying about everything.
Yeah. And lying about dumb stuff. I was like, he wouldn't care.
I loved our dog Blithers. The dog's name was Wesselhorst. And
she like cut up.
I had
the
a lisp
mother's
as a child.
wedding dress.
Yeah. Like everything was. She was just a bad person all the way around. I guess she was supposed to be a model, right? Was that her? Was that her job? But I said this last week, but that is also hilarious to me, is like Malin Ackerman is the gorgeous one and Katherine Heigl is the ugly duckling. And It's like, that doesn't make any sense in any world in which anyone is aware of anything, You just can't do that. I did like that. I don't know. I guess it was some kind of philanthropical business, whatever it was that they did. Like
they were
Ed Byrne was like, he climbed a bunch of mountains and then he started this business that did something good for people or whatever. But I couldn't quite figure it out. But 2 things I liked about that business. One is that after that first wedding, her friend shows up to work still carrying her bridal dress like 2 days later or whatever. So
I was like, when did the wedding happen? Like,
right. But the point was like, oh, she's one of those girls. She's gonna hook up with one of the groomsmen, and that's gonna be what she does for 2 days, whatever. But then she comes into work, so she ostensibly works there, like she's a coworker. And she just follows Katherine Heigl around the entire time and never like even goes to a desk or anything. And then Katherine Heigl leaves and she leaves with her. Like, I'm like, what is her job? She doesn't, have a job. How can you go into work and you just wander around and the boss doesn't even talk to her? Like, she's not that important. So it's not like she can get away with that. Ghost. But I was like, what is she doing? But also, I would have liked it if this was not her name, but I would have liked it if the receptionist was Jessica Jones, because that's what she did later, was Jessica Jones. I forget the actress's name, but if she was already like an alcoholic private detective in this, but also working in the daytime as a receptionist at this philanthropical company. Because she only has like 4 lines in the movie.
But she had a goth wedding.
Right.
Like, all of the weddings were like on the nose.
Was she the Halloween one?
Yes.
Where that was where she says like, this means I love you. And then, and it was also, there's also so many things that are like, so the way she meets Baby Boss is she leaves her file of facts in the cab.
Mm-hmm. And then he notices her. He's like, wow, she's going back and forth in the cab. That's interesting. Right? And then she like hurts herself. It's getting foggy. There's something happened. She like fell. And he's like, right.
She fell and got knocked unconscious
and
at one of those weddings. And she comes back to consciousness, and he's the only person helping her.
She needs better friends.
Everybody else is just staring from across the wedding. Like, what the fuck is going on with that idiot? Meanwhile, she just got knocked out because a girl was trying to get the bouquet of flowers before she did. Which is always funny to me in those scenes, because I literally have a picture from one of my brother's weddings of that moment where my now sister-in-law like threw the bouquet of flowers over her shoulder, and there's all these single women lined up behind her, including my significant other at the time, and all of the women are like so excited to be grabbing it, except for my girlfriend, who literally, I swear to God, this is true. I should get the picture. She literally looks like this.
No subtext.
Yeah, it worked out. But anyway, she gets knocked unconscious. Like, if somebody gets knocked unconscious in real life, that is a very
serious,
frightening moment. Yeah.
Yes. And
it's not like that. She's fine. Here, you want this? Yeah, you want this bouquet? You can take it home, and then this guy will drive you home. That'll be great.
And she was just like, "Ugh, this night wasn't that good." Like, I was like, "Are you okay?"
And also, like, she just ghosted the other wedding. Like, she never 100%. Went back to that one. The Irish goodbye at the Jewish Indian wedding. But yeah, a million things. Like, I'm trying to remember what else I did. I did write a couple things down. Oh, I was talking about how she forgot her file of facts. Then at a later moment, like, there's just these little things that you're like, if this happened in one large group of people once, I would get it. But like, she forgets her file of facts. Then there's a moment later on where Brothers McMullen forgets his wallet at work, and she goes to bring him the wallet. So she's there when he's asking her sister to marry him. But then another part of it is, so that's a weird coincidence that everybody's always leaving their shit everywhere at very important
moments. And no one has phones. Like, just be like, hey, I have your wallet. Like, let me know if you need it.
But then the other thing is, Baby Boss lost his bride at the altar to his college roommate. She loses the love of her life to her sister at somebody else's engagement party. Like, none of these are good people. They're all fucking around on somebody that somebody else cares about, It's kind of a dark view of humanity. Like, if you're not paying attention, your sister or your best friend is going to swipe your significant other. But the main thing to me is, like, I wish I could have a conversation with somebody where they would just go, you know what your problem is? It's this very specific thing.
Oof.
And
You
here
say you
is
wish that,
how.
but I feel like you would be like, this hurts quite a bit.
Probably.
I think that's what makes it unrealistic in these scenes because people just take it and you'd be like,
Mhm.
that would crush your soul. If somebody really put a mirror up to you, like, this is your one big problem, even if
Huh.
it was true, it would be so painful at first.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. But it also makes me think like, is there a person out there who thinks about people that way?
Oh, who are
Like,
constantly like, you know what your problem is?
yeah, like do you think that way about your closest? Because it has to be your closest friends. It can't
Right,
be
right, right.
like people that you sort of met on the bus or whatever. It's like somebody that you know very well. Are you able to look at them and go, this is the one specific thing that if this was different, you would be happy for the rest of your life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't, now we're just talking about fiction in general, but I think characters are typically written with like such a specific singular one motivation. So it's very easy to have like the one specific obstacle to that. And I would posit that human beings are more complex than that, where they have more than one overarching desire at any moment and more than one obstacle. And so it's hard to just be like, you know what you need to do? You need to try more fun things. Like it's not that simple, is what I'm saying.
I agree with you, but I also think that that is something you get out of other movies, for example. Like you don't feel like this person is on a straight and narrow path and this is the only thing about them that is of any interest to anyone, is how they are broken and how they're going to be fixed. It's like there's lots of stuff going on in this person's life. We're just focusing on this one part of it right now because this is what the movie is about, but there's other stuff that they have going on. Do you know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
But I maybe I'm just revealing too much about myself, but I
mhm.
also always feel, in studying literature and doing like analysis of plays, it's always about like the character's like one true universal motivation. And I've always felt like I couldn't completely relate. Like I couldn't boil down my one true motivation in life, but maybe I could in one story of my life, and that's what fiction is. I'm talking all these ideas out as I go.
No, I think, yeah. And as am I. I'm not, I do have a master's and a doctorate in comparative literature
In everything.
and cinema. Yeah. But I'm just talking about it as I go too. But like, I remember when I took a class, this is actually academic. When I took a class in college called Victorian Buildings Roman, which is a type of novel that is the development of personhood, basically. Like, Tom Sawyer is a buildings roman. It's about him growing into who he becomes or whatever. The professor talked about it in cinematic terms and said, everybody has this big, messy life. And the way these novels work, or the way a movie works, is you just pick the moments that are
Right.
going
That
to
work
show
for
this
that narrative.
particular
Yeah.
story. And I feel like what I get from a movie like 27 Dresses is there's no other part of this person's life.
It's just a
This
black
is
empty
it.
void.
Yeah.
Well, technically, she's got these 27 very enriched friendships, but we don't see any part
But
of
even
it.
if I had seen one conversation with one of those people, it would have made it feel like a more full character instead of a screen on which the writer, director, whoever projects this idea of like, we are all broken in a particular way. And if we can get past that one particular way, life is good after that.
Mm-hmm.
And we get married on the beach and we live happily ever after. And I guess that's escapism, and that's what people want from a movie like that. But it just feels so bizarre to me to watch something like that. I don't know why, but as I was watching it, I was literally thinking of Pulp Fiction. Like, of John Travolta.
Very similar.
Well, just like the Royale with cheese conversation, how that's like not really a narrative thing. It's just chit chat, but it gives us an idea of who these characters are and makes them fuller and more interesting, and not just like, we're going to kill these guys. These guys are going to get killed by us, who are killers. What we do is kill people, and we're going to kill these people because that's what we're getting paid to do, because we get paid to kill people. It's like they have other stuff going on. It's messier than, my mother died when I was little, and my father has never been the same since. And I've tried to take care of my sister ever since then. And of course that's impossible, because she's off jetting around the world with Italian models. And who knows who she's going to bring home in the middle of the night. But now she's met my boss and she likes him a lot. But I liked him first. But I guess I'm done with that because he likes her back. And now what do I do? I'm fucked. I have a terrible wound, but there's a way to fix it.
It's James Marsden.
It's Baby Boss. So anyway, I don't know why, but like I said, I've had that experience like 4 or 5 times in the last 6 months where I've just like late at night been flipping through and came across a rom-com and just sat and watched the entire thing. And I think it is that thing of like, wouldn't it be nice if life was this simple and neat? And all you had to do was solve this one thing, and then you could live happily ever after. And I'm looking at it through the lens of like, this is fucking absurd and ridiculous. But I guess the appeal of those movies is that people get to watch it and they're like, this could be how things go for me going forward. Although I would have to be much younger and my mother would have to die,
And this is besides the point. This is almost a hack thing to bring up at this point, but she's an assistant in New York City and her apartment is fucking awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just friends, what's the deal with their apartments? Like, how are they living in those apartments? But I mean, really, yes, you're right. But I'm okay with the apartment. I would have waste that much space for a bunch of fucking dresses you never wear.
Well, I guess if we're going to make the story, she's the loser. Her sister is the successful, cool, globe-trotting one. Like, put her in a small, dumpy apartment. Like, really go for it then. I don't know. Like, your life seems pretty good once you stop obsessing about your
like there should be the guy who's living upstairs and it's like she gets home and she's wants to go to bed and all of a sudden it's like
exactly.
She's like, oh, Mr. Davis.
Like, everything about her life is a nightmare. She's in the wrong place. But like if she just zoomed out and stopped obsessing about her boss, like her life's pretty cool. She clearly has a ton of friendships. Like, I don't know.
Right. And what we know now, the science of happiness dictates that that's what life is really all about in terms of happiness is the quality and quantity of friendships. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe she has so many.
Yeah, I don't
and the
think
quality is so low.
It might not have been reciprocal. That's I think also what they were trying to allude to.
Look, you got to get Jane to be one of your bridesmaids because that's all she does.
It's like getting a professional wedding consultant.
That's what she does. She's a bridesmaid. So anyway, folks, check out 27 Dresses.
This is a bizarre episode. I love it so much.
Well, yeah, but here's another. I won't keep going, but just thinking about when Brothers McMullen proposes to Malin Ackerman. Again, it's like everybody else's life is perfect except for, like he says, my parents met playing hopscotch when they were 8 years old and they were married for 42 years.
Hopscotch.
And like she has a picture, she has an article, a clipped out article from the world-renowned New York Journal that in her apartment of her parents' wedding. Yeah, but like, I don't know. I don't have any pictures or articles from my parents' wedding up in my apartment. That seems odd to me.
Well, it's also because there's so many things they could have done where it could have been about the fact that she was so obsessed with weddings, but didn't really care about like relationships. Like a wedding is to get a
Mhm.
marriage, and that she needed to learn about actual like human connection instead of focusing on the ceremony. And he, or
Right.
something like that. Like, but it because she was obsessed with her parents' wedding. Like, who cared? I don't know. It was bizarre. Everything about it was bizarre. Oh,
Where it was, what the mom was wearing. Are you still there?
yeah. I think my
Oh
internet's
boy.
going in and out.
Here we go. I think mine is too. Why don't we take a break and I will reset my modem and then we'll come back and finish without losing contact.
Bye-bye.
Right. Hey everybody, it's Sean. You are listening to The Long Shot. If you're like me, you live most of the time in a fantasy where everything is beautiful and nobody hurts. But once in a while, practical reality intrudes, and that's where we're at with The Long Shot right now. Where we have been maintaining that Joe and Jamie are away on assignment all the time. And right now it feels like they're just not here anymore. I can't say that they're never coming back because I really don't know. But it does change the nature of the show and the nature of how we set the show up. So you may notice things being a little bit different, but that's the nature of life. We evolve, we change, we keep going, and we get back into the mindset where everything is beautiful and nobody hurts. So take a moment, write us a review, write us a 5-star review on iTunes, and tell us why this is the worst thing that ever happened, that Joe and Jamie are not around anymore, or how amazing it's going to be without them. It's up to you. Maybe it's both. Now back to our show. We're back. You're listening to The Long Shot, and we're talking about 27 Dresses. So in the first scene of 27... no, we're going to get into parting shots. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. Two things I wanted to mention. I was talking before about how as soon as I'm supposed to watch something, I have no interest in watching it, and I'll watch anything else. That said, when what I'm supposed to watch is something that I know I love, I'm like, okay, this is an excuse to watch this thing.
Totally.
So I watched, because of a discussion I had with some of the people I'm working on one of these projects with, I started watching the first episode of Deadwood the other night, which is one of my favorites of all time. Such a great show. And of course, now I'm like 7 episodes into season 1. Like I just am compelled to keep watching it. But what was very exciting to me was at some point, and this is only because I'm such a weirdo about these things, somebody in the show says, all those guys out there waiting online. And I was like, yes, like, and of course, the guy who wrote the show, David Milch, was from Buffalo, New York. And so I don't know if Buffalo is within that New York regional area, but he also like went to Yale and wrote NYPD Blue. So I'm assuming lived in New York City while he was doing that. So, he's with the regionalism, even though it's like an anachronistic, it's a Western that takes place in like 1878. He was saying online instead of inline. And I was like, nice, love it. But the other thing I was going to talk about, and this is, something we've talked about a couple times over the last few weeks, And again, something I talk way too much about. But on my way back from brunch the other day, I realized, or I guess I realized on my way down, that even though I got my registration for this year for my car, I hadn't put it on my license plate.
Mm-hmm.
So I was driving around. The thing was in my front seat or on my front seat. I forget which is acceptable. And I had not attached it to my license plate yet. So I was like, if I get pulled over, hopefully I won't get a ticket. I'll be able to say, no, I have it right here. But as I was about to drive back up the 5 back to Los Angeles, I was like, let me just stop for 2 seconds and I can just put the thing on the back of my license plate and then I don't have to worry about it anymore. So I pulled into a Starbucks, switched the thing, put it on my license plate, and I was like, hey, I'm here.
1 second.
I'm at Starbucks. Why don't I grab myself a coffee to drink? Yeah. Let me go inside and get a coffee to drink. So I go into this Starbucks, nondescript. I mean, we all know what Starbucks looks like at this point. There's 5 people behind the counter. I'm the only person on or in line initially. The woman says to me, she looks back and she goes, just so you know, we're short-staffed today and we are really slammed right now. So it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to get a drink right now. And I was like, I don't see it, but okay. Yeah. Like all I want is a coffee with cream. Like I don't want a frappuccino with a double mocha latte twist with caramel syrup and sprinkles on top. I just want a coffee with cream. And she looks back again to the other people that are there and she goes, it'll still probably be about 10 minutes. And I said, and by this time there's a guy right behind me, either in or online. And I said, I was really trying to be nice about it. And I said, I'm not trying to give you a hard time or anything. I'm just trying to figure out what the workflow is here, because it seems like just grabbing a cup of coffee with cream in it shouldn't take 10 minutes. Like, I feel like that would be easy for you to do. So can you just, I'm trying to understand what your workflow is. And she goes, me too. And I was like, okay, all right. So I'm not going to get an answer, which fine. It seems insane to me that it should take 10 minutes to get a cup of coffee with cream in it. That it's literally a 20-second operation. And if you are handling orders of people who are ordering online or in line, no, that's definitely online. If you're handling orders of people that are online and that's what's holding you up and what you're really focused on, that's fine. But it feels like you can take the 20 seconds out to just give me my coffee so I can leave. But she was not able to make that kind of executive command decision. And I had decided I was going to get a coffee from Starbucks. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. Well, apparently me saying, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, I just want to know what your workflow is, was too much for the guy behind me in line to handle, because then he interjected himself into the conversation, not directly to me, but to her, as if he was the hero of the story. Yeah. He was like,
oh, damn. I was trying to get him in the shot. It didn't work out. I'm listening.
So the guy behind me goes, hey, come on. It's Sunday. Everybody just needs to chill the fuck out. Come on. Nobody needs to be upset. It's fucking Sunday. What's the big deal? And I'm like 3 feet away and I'm ready to fucking murder this guy. Like, don't get in my face because you need to be a hero to the girl behind the counter when what's happening right now is fucking Twilight Zone crazy. Mm-hmm. I didn't say anything. I just walked away, but I was like, let me see how long it actually does take. So I'm looking at my watch and or not my watch, my clock. I carry a clock. I had a clock. It was a grandfather clock. I was looking at my grandfather. My grandfather was carrying my grandfather clock. Anyway, what was he doing there? I don't know. But I just wanted, and it took 8 minutes for me to get just a cup of coffee. And it's because of the online ordering. And that is ruining the interface experience of going in. Like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And of course, the problem is I was standing there and I was like, I would much rather go somewhere else. But how the fuck am I going to find another coffee shop when I'm in, Dust Bowl, California, between LA and Southern Orange County, except, Starbucks is easy to find. And so is that just the future, is waiting way too long just to get one cup of coffee? It makes no sense to me. And I know there are worse things happening in the world. I was on Franklin Avenue today, stuck in traffic. And I was like, this is crazy. Why is this traffic like this? Meanwhile, I'm listening to the New York Times podcast, The Daily, which today is about Rikers Island, the prison in New York, which apparently is completely controlled by gangs at this point. Like, the guards have no control over anything. So people are just being forced to fight gladiator style against each other, and people aren't allowed to use toilets, and everybody gets their shit stolen, and people just get stomped down all the time by the various gangs. So I'm sitting there going, this traffic, there's worse things in the world. I could be in a different situation. It would be way worse. So I understand that Starbucks, taking 10 or 15 minutes to get a cup of coffee is not the worst thing in the world, but it just seems like it makes no sense at this point that that's the direction things are going. And somebody told me that now there are kiosks in New York where there's not even any place to order. You just have to use the app and order your Starbucks before you go, and then it's ready when you get there. So they're just getting rid of workers, basically. They're not,
right.
It's all about corporations saving money. So yes, it's a tiny thing, but on the other hand, it is also maximizing profits at the expense of people having a decent experience.
There's a local bagel shop in my neighborhood that's really good. It is really, truly good.
Is this your parting shot?
Sure, why not? I gotta go. I've been staring at a computer all day long. I'm actually starting to panic a little bit. But it's really good. But I think it was a COVID thing originally where you have to order online. Like, even if you go in person, they will say, like, did you place the order ahead of time? And it's really, really good. I haven't been in a while, but there's always, as soon it opens at, 7 a.m. and then there's a line down the block. And it always boggles my mind because you place an order ahead of, like, the last time I did it, I placed an order online from home. So in theory, I should just walk up and pick up my stuff, but you still have to wait in that long line to get to the front to say, like, hey, I'm ready. I know my stuff is ready. I got a little boop, 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 my stuff is ready. But every time without, and I'm fine with it now. Like, I know that that's what it is. So like, that's part of it. I'm not going starving. It's that is part of the process. But there is always 1, 2, 5 people who are just standing in line, and they've been in line for a very long time, and there's big signs that say, like, you have to order ahead, and they get up to the front and they're like, so what kind of bagels do you have? And it's like, I want to throw you in a fire. Like, how is this happening? Like,
I am so with you.
Because there's like QR codes, you could look up the whole menu. Like, they make it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you're the reason there's this long line.
Right.
Because, like, as soon as I said my name, they handed me a bag. It was 1 second. It's like those dummies slowing down the line.
Right. It's like, and, same thing happens at a Starbucks where people go like, now that drink, do you put, what's in that? I mean, is that, and I'm like, who the fuck doesn't know? Come on. You came in here for something, right? Motherfucker.
Jeff and I still talk about it because it was mind-boggling. And I'm like, were they being funny? But we went to like a crab boil type place, like a place where you get a bunch of seafood and with like chunks of potato and corn, like kind of dumped out, and it's all in that like Cajun sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And the people next to us were like, it sounded like they were Martians. Like they were like, now how big is a lobster? And how many calories are in a lobster? Like it was just like, get the lobster or don't get the lobster. Like, don't make this poor waiter answer every trivia question about lobsters. Like, it was wild. This is a seafood restaurant. Like, I don't know.
Does the lobster have vacation days?
Oh, and the other one that we always talk about, always. And there's no connection except it's overhearing people at restaurant story. But we went to some like fried chicken restaurant, and there was clear. And
Kentucky
I think
Fried Chicken.
It was Dinah's. And I may have even told the story in the podcast before. But I truly don't care. And there was like a dad with.
I thought you were going to say I don't remember, but you're like, yeah, fuck it.
There was a dad with like two very small children, and I got the vibe. No judgment, but I got the vibe that this dad doesn't spend a lot of time with these two small children alone. Mm-hmm. And so it's like a fried chicken restaurant. So there's a lot of sides. And maybe I'm the bad person, but I would have been like, here's your chicken fingers and here's your French fries. You're 3 years old. But he went through the menu and read every single side to them, to the point where he was like, do you want regular fries or seasoned fries? And what I say, Jeff and I say this to each other all the time when we're like getting too in the weeds, is the little kid just goes, what seasoning? And I'm like, yeah, we're in too deep, buddy. Chicken French fries. Like, they don't know what you're talking about. And it's too long. You're giving them too many.
Father who's just trying to prove how much he loves his kids, and he's failing miserably.
What seasoning? like they were gonna be there all day long, just picking food that they didn't know what he was talking about.
Wait, what's salt?
Yeah, exactly. Where does it come from?
All right. Well, one thing we did not talk about, and we'll have to wait till next week to get into this, is one of the new parts of our podcast is that it's a murder podcast. So we have not talked at all about the Murdaugh murders this week. I did get a tip from one of my sources. That's what they always say on murder podcasts is they go, I got a tip from one of my sources. So I did get a tip from one of my sources that the news organization Fitz News, and I have not looked into this tip, but I believe that it's probably accurate. Fitz News, which is the news organization that Mandy Matney, I'm Team Mandy. Mm-hmm. Mandy Matney works for Fitz News. The tip I got from one of my sources, and I have several sources, but this particular source gave me a tip that Fitz News is not just a small town like news.
Oh, it's
local news organization. No, not that it's big, but that it has an agenda. In other words, that maybe it's like a libertarian, conservative, anti-government regulation kind of news organization. So it was not set up just to be into this Murdaugh stuff. It was set up to promote libertarian, free market, Ayn Rand ideals or whatever. But this is what they kind of stumbled into. So I'm going to investigate that and find out more about that. Because if they're libertarian, that means they're in the Rand Paul camp, which makes me think that it's time to really start ripping them as well. So we'll see. We'll see. Folks, this has been 27 Dress Murder with Sean and Amber. We'll see you next week. We're going to be discussing I wish I could The Tuxedo with Sandra Bullock and Jackie Chan.
Fun.
See you next time.
Bye.
did you listen to the sound